guys, well, I have here a 98 B7XA out of a Honda Accord V6 transmission. I'm going to do a rebuild video. I already have a teardown video on one of these 4-speed units that was on an Acura. So here's the unit itself. External components, you have your transmission range sensor here. You have your dual clutch linear solenoids. You have a counter shaft speed sensor, third clutch pressure switch. You have two shift solenoids here and another two shift solenoids up here, with one being a lockup solenoid, A, B, and C. And then you have your second clutch pressure switch here. This is actually the main shaft speed sensor, and this is the counter shaft speed sensor. So all these are the electronics on the outside of the unit. I'm going to tear this thing down, and then I'm going to show you the damage, and then after that we're going to start doing the rebuild. I'm not going to show you the teardown. Like I said, you can refer to that Acura teardown video that I have, and I'll go ahead and tear this thing down and show you what we're going to find in here. And then we're going to go step by step on the rebuild procedures. Okay, so we are getting ready for the rebuild. I already got my tools set up for my, we're going to start working on the valve body. And of course you need your bench buddies and small little tools to work on the valve body, torque wrench, speed handle, my 10 and a 12 millimeter sockets. I haven't started cleaning it up yet. Here's all the bolts, and here it's the transmission itself. There's our valve body right there, and our shafts, our drums. We're gonna go step by step. We're gonna start with the valve body. We're gonna open the whole thing up. We're gonna go through the valves. We're gonna clean them up. We're gonna go through the instructions on the shift kit. Now let's walk over here, and don't mind that transmission there. This is what is going to go into this transmission. We got two pressure switches. I have a Translab from Superior. It's a Superior shift kit. New filter. I'm not sure if these are going to work on this unit. They're the shaft nuts. If they don't fit, then I'll reuse the original ones. There's nothing wrong with them. This is the paper O-rings and seals, or the Overhaul kit. Clutches and steels with molded balanced pistons. And we're working on a B7XA. Let me flip this thing over. And here we see B7XA. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on the tripod, and we're going to start disassembling the valve body. That guy right there, this one here. And we're going to start cleaning it up, polishing the boards, and installing the Translab shift kit from Superior. Okay, so here I have the valve body already. I already took the valves out. And on this side of the valve body, we're going to start from right to left. We have the torque converter clutch valve, and then next we have a relief valve, which is the second one, and then we have shift valve E, and then which is the little one. And then next to that we have shift valve D, and then our manual valve port here. Manual valve comes in this way, and then we have shift valve E, and then we have I forgot the name of this valve here. Modulator valve. That's right. That's the modulator valve. This little one right here. Modulator valve. And then on the opposite end, we have the reverse clutch pressure control valve. And then we have our servo control valve on this other end. Okay, so now we're going to polish the boards. Let me get all these little tools out of the way, and we're just gonna grab a little bench buddy here and attach it to our grill, and we polish the bores. Now when you polish the bores, I mean, you want the valve to fall in on its own weight. That's one. That's two. Shift valve E. We did the torque converter clutch valve first, then we did the release valve. Now we're doing shift valve E, shift valve D. This is our manual valve port. We don't do that. Shift valve C. Modulator valve. Reverse clutch pressure control valve. Servo control valve. Okay, now that we got him all polished up, now we're going to test the valves, but first I'm just going to run some WD and clean this up a little bit. Get some compressed air and blow it out. Gonna do the other two. Okay, now we're gonna, now if you notice here, some of the valves are against the end plug, and on the valves that you have against the end plug, like your torque converter, let me get this out of the way. The torque converter clutch valve, it's against the end plug, and then you have this shift solenoid valve also against the end plug, and then you have the reverse clutch pressure control against the end plug. The ones that have the spring against the end plug, I mean, you don't have to seal them up real good. But the ones that are against the end plug, the apply portion of the valve, then you want to make sure that you have a perfect seal there and that it seals correctly. What we're going to do, I'm going to get my tubing cutter and then I'm going to cut a groove in it. Like I mentioned, I'm doing this differently. Otherwise, I would install all my Sonics items on my Honda units. I'm installing this, and the only two O-ring end plugs that are in this kit are the ones for the clutch pressure control valves. I mean, if you look in here, I only have two O-ring end plugs in the parts bag. We have two brand new clutch pressure control valves. They're going to go on the servo valve body, and then we're going to install a new pressure regulator valve. And the 1-2 accumulator springs and some other items that are in here. But for these valves here on this valve body that are against the end plug, we're going to use our tubing cutter and we're gonna cut a groove in there to make sure that they seal correctly. Okay, so now we go to our TCC valve. Let's go ahead and test that. It should fall on its own weight all the way to the bottom, as you see here. Let's put a little bit of this WD. WD-40, besides lubricant, it actually cleans very well. As you see that it actually improved. Let me get this thing closer here to you. There we go. It falls on its own weight. This is a kind of heavy spring, so whenever you take the end plug out, sometimes it likes to shoot out. Our relief valve. There we go. That's what you want. Shift valve E. It went all the way in. Yep. This one knits a little bit. Got stuck almost all the way. It still knits just a little bit more to go all the way into the end. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to kind of mold it a little bit. I'm going to use a little punch and a little bitty hammer and just tap on it. There it went. It fell right out. Now it went all the way in. Here's the bottom of the valve, and we are bottomed out. There we go. Fall on his own weight. Let's see where you at. Now here in the beginning it gets cocked sideways a little bit because it's a two step valve. If you see the shape of the valve, it has one land larger than the other. So once it starts to go in, I mean it'll get hung up sideways, but as you see, it's already in the bottom of the bore. That's exactly what you want to see, especially on the steel valves. Now let's test this one. Needs a little bit. You see, when you do this, it bottoms out and it bounces back out. So that's a good indication. As long as it falls under its own weight, the spring force will move it. Now let's get this other one here. This one goes shift valve C all the way down to the bottom. Whenever you have valves moving this freely, you will never have an issue with it shifting. Modulator valve. I'm on the opposite end. Modulator valve over here. This was real hung up, and I think I need to work this one here a little bit more. Oh, there it went. It was real hung up. That's what you want to see. You could tap it a little bit. It'll free it up. There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and assemble this portion of the valve body, and then we go ahead and get the other two. Now I didn't bring a screwdriver here. Let's see here. Modulator valve. Start. Push that stiff spring. There we go. All right. Some springs are less tough to install. Let's go ahead and install this valve here. Let me get the tubing cutter. I need to fix that end plug right quick. Okay, so I've already fixed the end plug on this shift valve, the one on the torque converter clutch ply valve, and I got the one for the reverse clutch pressure control. I'm working on it right now, and as you see here, I mean, it's just a tubing cutter. I put it on the tubing cutter, get a little bitty pliers and hold it and turn it. What you want is you want to make a little groove. It's going to be hard going into the bore, but it's actually going to create a seal. You don't want to overdo it because then you may not get the plug in. Okay, so get the tubing cutter, put this back where it belongs. Now I already have all the kit components out of the box. They're right here. We got two O-ring end plugs. They are made out of steel. They're different than the Sonics ones. Everybody does their own design. Here is our clutch pressure control valves. Now you've probably seen this style of valve before, like on a Transgo does it, like on the early 700s, you know, for the TV valve. And I kind of like this style of valves because in between those little grooves, you get fluid trapped in there, and it actually balances the valve inside the bore, and it kind of makes the valve kind of float in there. So that's a real good design. Comes with some 3 drill bits, 2 plugs, aluminum plugs, 1 cotter pin, the springs for the CPC valves, some other springs, 1-2 accumulator spring, the superior version of this pressure regulator valve. As you see here, it does have the hole for that goes, the factory hole that goes to the front of the valve, which starts regulating this valve. Now there is no line to converter charge here like on the Sonics, where they have a little hole drilled out, but you can see the land, it has a real large taper to it. So and then a spring in the front which keeps this valve a little bit open, or it actually helps the valve starts regulating or starts working. And this big old land here, that taper, I mean, that's just part of the line to converter charge cross circuit. Okay, now let's continue with this valve body here. Now let me get the plug in, and it is going to be a little bit stiff once you do that, but you get your big hammer like this, you start going in, and you actually want to go just far enough that you can get your clip in there. You go a little bit further in until you see the groove. Then what I do, I just start the clip, and if you see the groove and the clip goes in, you're far enough. If not, just give it a little tap. There we go. And now our clip is installed. Our clip is installed. Our plug is sealing the ply circuit on this valve. And this is the shift valve C, this real long one. Okay, now the manual valve goes next, and then we have the shift valve C. A little bit of WD in there. Now this, you don't have to use your tubing cutter. I mean, you have the spring against the valve, so just drop your end plug there, put your clip on it, and just make sure that the end plug, it's seating against the clip itself. Now let's install our shift valve E. You see it went right in. Install our end plug. This one's on the opposite end, and this goes kind of far in. There we go. Put our clip in it, and make sure that it seats against the clip like that. put our relief valve in it. Get a little screwdriver to push the spring and get its clip. There we have it. Lockup control valve. Same scenario here. It's going to be a little bit stiff going in. Same application. Now this valve is kind of bouncing a little bit because that spring, it's a little tough. Now I'll get my clip started here. Once you start seeing the groove, it'll shut down and latch in place. There we go. Same thing there. Make sure that the plug is against the clip. Let's go ahead and install our servo control valve. We don't need to do the groove on this one since the spring is actually against the plug itself, not the valve. Make sure that it's all the way out. Clutch pressure control, reverse clutch pressure control valve. And it does have a sleeve on it. Okay. Same scenario here. It's going to get a little hung up. Just get it until you can see the groove where the clip goes. See that it's not going in all the way, just tap it a little bit. There we go. Went right in. Now make sure that your plug it's against the clip. So there we have it. Our valve body is done. Now one more thing that we have to polish. TC check valve bore. Torque converter check valve. Check valve. And make sure that it's nice and polished. Okay. Where's that check valve at? So this is the original check valve that goes on there, and the green spring supplied is going to go on this check valve. Now let's go ahead and test it. It should go through all the way through. There we go. I know that sometimes the lubrication makes it get a little not sticky, but it kind of grabs on it. But there we have it. That's what you want to see. I'm going to go ahead and keep it here. And the little white spring is the torque converter or the cooler relief or cooler check valve, and it takes a little ball up underneath there. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the next of the valve body. We're going to go ahead and do the accumulator body. We're going to go ahead and do the servo valve body where the two clutch pressure control valves are at, and of course the pressure regulator valve body. Okay, so here we have the transmission already disassembled, and we have some hard part issues here as well. My second gear needle bearing, you can see the needles falling off on my needle bearing here, and my race is pitted. So we're gonna need actually the whole gear, the whole actual gear. The gear is the race for this needle bearing here, and also not only that, but this bearing that's in here, that one, that bearing is the race for that needle bearing as well, for this guy right here. Okay, so it had some friction problems. Let me show you a new little filter. Now this is a new filter If you see the way it looks, I'm going to get it closer so you can kind of look at it and see the way this filter here looks. There's two filters in this transmission, those little round filters. One here, this goes on the main valve body. It goes over there. Let me get it closer to you. I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to pick up all that friction material, and actually the filters is bent in, kind of going towards the opposite end. And if you see here, I'm not sure if the light is hidden on the inside of that filter, but I mean, this filter's clogged. There's another filter, which is this one right here. I mean, you can see that this filter is, I mean, completely full of clutch material. Okay. Now this is my one first and second gear drum. I did not disassemble it yet. I want to show you, I mean, the way it looks. I'm going to get it closer to the camera, and I want you to look at the snap ring, where the snap ring's at, and I want you to look at the clearance that this clutch pack has. That's a lot of clearance. That's a lot of clearance. This frictions, they are very, very worn out. That's second gear. Now this is first gear. First gear, it does have a lot of clearance, but it's not as bad as the second gear. All right, well, let me get this this thing apart right quick so you can see. This is first gear. First gear is the one that takes the wavy. They look in fair shape. I mean, they don't look burn up, but you saw the clearance. That's excessive clearance. That's way too much. Here is the wavy that goes to first clutch. Let's flip this thing over. We have one more steel in there. Let's take a look at this thing right quick. So this is the first steel that goes inside the drum. It's in good shape. Now look at this friction. I mean, look at how thin that thing is. It has no more friction actually. All the friction has been worn out. It's gone. I mean, I'm surprised that I've seen where actually it's metal to metal, and I mean, the steels are just junk. And here we just see a lot of wear, a lot of end play. You can see a little bit of a blackness on this one. So the issue with this, by looking at this excessive clearance in first and second gear, he had put it in drive, and it would have like a little bump going into drive when you put it in gear. Also, second gear like that, being like that, it would give you a real long 1-2, like a slide, and then a bump going to second gear. If it was going into second gear, it would probably on heavy acceleration probably lost second, or maybe it will jump from first to third. That's an indication that I mean, those clutch packs are gone. You have the same symptoms with the linear solenoids. Now I want to show you something here right quick as well. The little solenoids, they have little screens in them. Now the two in the ends are clear. Let me get this one out. It's completely plugged up with friction material. The filters on the opposite end is on this end right here. It's just completely plugged up. Shift and lockup solenoids. You would have a P0740 code, nor torque converter clutch. Well, actually Honda names it torque converter clutch circuit, and it's been mistaken for an electrical circuit, which the circuit on Hondas is the complete setup, electric and hydraulic, or electro-hydraulic circuit, which means that the solenoid valves have to be operable, the fluid has to be able to pass through the circuit, the valve has to stroke, and the torque converter clutch has to apply. That's what P0740 means on a Honda. Torque converter clutch circuit. That's just the definition that Honda gives it. And unfortunately, it's very vague. On some other manufacturers, you have P0741, P0742, which is one is stuck on, one is stuck off, and things like that. But anyways, this is where we are at right now. Let me see if I can zoom in a little closer on that one bearing. So you can see how pitted it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you can see it. Let me focus here right quick. I mean, you can see the pit marks where the needle bearing, where this needle bearing here. Wait, too close. Where this needle bearing sits on that race, that bearing is actually the race for that bearing. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. I'm gonna put the housings, you know, the aluminum big parts in the cooker and the parts washer, and all these parts right here, they need to be washed by hand. I use solvent, bar salt, or mineral spirits, however you guys know it. So this is basically it. It's gonna take a rebuild kit, clutches and steels, and on this one I'm gonna do a little different. I'm gonna get a superior kit for this one. I know that I've been using Sonex valves for the line to converter charge lubrication, and before I started using those Sonex valve, I used to just drill a line to a converter charge hole and use a tubing cutter for my end plugs. But now I'm going to do this a little different. I'm going to use a superior kit and see how these things perform. I know that I don't want to change. I don't like changing anything when something is working except excellent for me. And Sonex valves, they work perfect for me. So somebody suggested me to do a superior one, so I am going to do it on this one. All right, guys. Well, let me get this thing cleaned up, and we'll go for the rebuild after this. Okay, guys. Well, here I have my pressure regulator valve body, and here we see our pressure regulator valve. I already got everything out of the valve body, all the valves out, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do polish the bores. This is the pressure regulator valve bore. Torque converter clutch timing valve. And the lockup control valve. Now on the main valve body, the torque converter clutch valve is the converter shift valve, and this is the control valve. Okay, that should be enough. Let's go ahead and put some WD in here. And clean it up with compressed air. Okay, so now we test the PR valve, pressure regulator. Should fall on its own weight. There we go. Once you get the valve started, it should fall in on its own weight. The aluminum valves, they're not heavy. These are anodized aluminum. It just dropped in. It just dropped in all the way in. I mean, if you see here, all the way in. Go ahead and put our plug. This is the way this plug looks. That little dimple. Oh, wrong hole. Goes towards the spring. There we go. He has the spring against the end plug, so he doesn't really need the to do that thing with the tubing cutter. Let's go ahead and test this torque converter clutch control valve. There we go. That's exactly what you want to see. Let's go ahead and drop our sleeve in here. There we go. Sleeve in. Spring. And plug. And you got to test it, make sure that your end plug it's against your clip, which we are. And this little sleeve has to freely move. There we go. And you can actually hear the sleeve moving freely in there. Okay, so now our new pressure regulator valve, it has a little bumper spring here at the end. Let's go ahead and compare the two, see what they look like. I mean, they're almost identical, but if you see, let me see if I can put this sideways so you can see the factory valve. Right here, there is a line to converter charge, and down here there is a line to lube cut out on the land itself. Let me see if I can get this a little closer to you and see if the camera is going to be able to macro. There we go. I don't know if you can see the cutout. Actually, it has a cutout on each side. You see a cutout on the right and a cutout on the left. On this land, this is converter. This is line to converter charge circuit. And this would be a line pressure to a loop circuit. And if you see here that it has the cutouts on both ends. There is our valve. If you see that darkness color there, that's just the valve where pressure was blowing by, burning the valve. There's nothing wrong with this valve. And here we see the orifice, you know, in the front of the valve, where line pressure goes into this orifice through here. There's a little hole. Can we see it? Yeah, we can. And it goes into the front of the valve, and then it starts, you know, regulating line pressure. It opens up the valve just a little bit to get line to converter charge and line to lube. And if we look at the valve, at this valve here, we see it all the way around. Instead of just that one cutout on each end, we see it all the way around. And we see also, I'm going to get this valve closer. See that flat spot right there? That's allowing full-time lube oil to cross those two lines right there. I mean, I'm hoping that the camera is picking this up and you're probably able to see this. I'm turning the valve. There you see the flat. Now the light is shining on the flat. There we go. Full-time line to converter charge. Let's go ahead and install this valve. I have that spring. I didn't put no assembly lube on the spring. That's why I'm doing this upside down like that. Now on the kit it says to reuse our original bumper springs. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to go down and then we're going to tighten up. Now I know that torque specifications on this is 8.7 or something like that. I just use 9 pounds. Round number, 9 pounds, and I do my whole valve body like that. There we go. 9 pounds. We have our first item from the kit installed, and as you see here, the pressure of the springs, it's actually keeping the spring compressed, the little blue spring that was in there. So this actually looks like factory, but you can actually see in here in this bowl right here, in this cutout, you can actually see the ground portion of the valve, allowing line to convert a charge. It's actually feeding both ways, or line pressure from both ways going into here. Okay, now the new filters. This is the way the filters go on this unit, like this on this valve body here. It's new. Now on our main valve body, one goes right there. This goes like this, and this looks like it's backwards, but it actually goes like that. Okay, well, here we have our accumulator valve body. We're going to do all the valves first, and then we're going to go to the spacer plates, and we're going to enlarge or reduce the hole sizes as per the instructions on the kit. I already got my 3 valves out. You see here, let me get this thing a little bit this way. Here we have our both old clutch pressure control valves, and of course the new ones. The new ones come with their own springs. Then we have our shift valve B, and which is A and B. I think this is B, and this is A. Shift valves, and as you see here that the springs are against the plug and the clip, and the clutch pressure control valves are actually against the end plugs, but there's new end plugs in the kit here, so we're going to use these O-ring end plugs. These are the only 2 end plugs that are supplied in this kit with O-rings, and my belief and everyone else agrees with me that any valve that is against the board like this should have a great seal. That's why we use a tubing cutter or Sonex end plugs. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get our bench buddies here and start polishing. Shift valve B, I think I am correct on this one. Shift valve B being on the outside, and shift valve A on the inside. And then our clutch pressure control valve A. Clutch pressure control valve B. Okay. Put some of these WD on there. Compressed air. Let's go ahead and assemble our shift valves. There we go. End plug. Clip. Shift valve A. Oops. It fell all the way to the bottom that it actually made the spring bounce out. That's when you know that your valve is perfectly free. I'm going to go ahead and start this square retainer here and then go down on my spring. This is going to be a little fun, but I'll get it in there. There we go. Now we just want to make sure that our spring is straight, that it's not caught sideways. We can actually accomplish that by aligning it through this hole with this pick. There we go. You want the spring straight, otherwise the valve will not stroke all the way to its open position. If the spring is a little bit cocked sideways, then the valve won't do its full travel. Okay, now let's go ahead and test this clutch pressure control valves. And of course you want to do them without the spring. And as you see here, it fell right in. Exactly what you want. But I am right at the bottom, and I'm just going to tap on this little valve here. Just make sure that it bottoms out good. That is perfect. Let's go ahead and try this same valve on the other bore. I mean, this is just beautiful. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just tap it a little bit, one time. That'll the reason I tap it once on the bottom of the bore is because sometimes you will see some deformation at the bottom, and it'll get the valve kind of sticky going out. And as you see here, I mean, this is exactly what you want to see. You go ahead and put the new springs in them. And since I'm not using assembly loop to hold them, I'm going to do it this way. But I am going to need to get some. For the end plugs. New end plug. Use the original clips. Make sure that the plug is against the clip. Need to lube this one up. There we go. Same thing here. Pop it in there. A bit of assembly lube. The valve in there. I have to wiggle it a little bit. Get the clip. Install the clip. Make sure that the end plug is against the clip. And there we have it. Two brand new clutch pressure control valves. Let's go ahead and replace this O-ring for our servo shaft. Lube it up. Go ahead and install it in here. There we go. Now we have two accumulator pistons, third and fourth. Let's go ahead and take this O-rings out. Put the new ones in it. Lube them up. And they go here. Third and fourth. Now this little plug right here, it says on the kit to install it in one of these holes, and it's actually this one. I already blew some air through it. It goes in a little loose, and then it stops right there. So I'm going to get a little larger punch, and I'm just going to tap it, make sure that if it locks it in place. Use this punch right here and tap it. Oops, missed it. There we go. And it's held. It's already held. It's holding there, it's not falling off. That's what you want to see. Okay, so now we put this valve body to the side. I mean, if you want to keep track of your bolts, then you can, I mean, just kind of lay them there, but I'm not going to do that right now. Here are the springs for the two accumulators. I'm just going to put the bolts on top. Keep them together with that. They belong to that valve body there. There we go. Now let's get this old valve and the plugs out of here. We're not using them anymore. we got one more accumulator body, and then we start assembling the valve bodies to the case. Okay, so here we have our first and second accumulator body. First accumulator, second accumulator, and then we have a lube valve here. This lube valve is really not necessary to take out because it doesn't stroke. It doesn't do anything. I mean, it just sits there. Looks like a bullet. He rattles a little bit, but he doesn't have a lot of travel. I mean, so you don't have to worry much about this. There's two check balls that goes in here. I'm gonna go ahead and drop them in. Two check ball locations. Two check balls. Go ahead and put our plate here and kind of eyeball the other bolt hole. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now we put new O-rings on these accumulators. We'll go ahead and drop the, this is the smaller one of the two, which is the first accumulator. Let's go ahead and install a new O-ring in it. Some assembly lube. And our snap ring. There we go. Now on the 1-2 accumulator, we're not going to use the factory springs, but we are going to go ahead and put a new O-ring on it. This is actually not it. Let me look for it. Okay, found it. New 1-2 accumulator O-ring, and we are going to use this red springs that are supplied in the kit for 1-2. It's supposed to better the shift quality from first to second gear. Okay, so there we have it. Two check balls underneath this little plate. New O-rings on the first and second accumulator with new first to second accumulator springs. Now let's go ahead and go through all of the spacer plates and see what holes we need to enlarge. Okay, well, looking at the instructions here, this is the first plate that we're going to enlarge some holes, and here are the instructions for it. And then we're going to use the same 46 thousandths of an inch drill bit to enlarge some of the holes in these two other plates here. Now on the loop circuit vent, we're going to put a little cotter pin there, supplied. Then the pressure regulator to converter feed. We're going to check to see that it's 125 thousandths of an inch. If it's larger, then we need to plug it up and make it 125 thousandths of an inch. If it is a little smaller, then we use the bit supplied and we just go through the hole. And this one here, lockup timing valve balance, we're going to drill it to 46 thousandths of an inch. Lockup exhaust, we're going to leave it as it is because it's a normal vehicle. Here, where is it at? It says all normal duty vehicles do not drill. It's a Honda Accord. And this one here is the cooler rear exhaust. Where is it at? We're going to drill this to 125 thousandths of an inch. It's almost close to it, but we're going to drill it to that. Okay, so let's start with the little cotter pin. And here I have my pressure regulator valve spacer plate here. Just cross the cotter pin across like that, and then just clip it short. Once clipped short, then spread the ends. Okay, I don't know what I did with my little screwdriver. spread the ends. Okay, we probably need to cut a little shorter. Just make sure that it doesn't interfere. That should be enough, like that. Okay, so now we get our 125 drill bit. And now we're going to check our PRTC hole. Make sure that it's 125 thousandths of an inch, which is this one, and the drill bit doesn't go through, so we're going to go ahead and go through it. It was almost up to size, so we're good on that. Just clean up the excess. Now the lockup timing valve, it's going to be 46 thousandths of an inch. Let's go ahead and I don't think my disc drill is going to work for that. Let's use the mini drill here. So here's the one next to it. If we're looking at it like this, this hole right here. Factory 33 thousandths, we're going to go 46 thousandths. There we go. Now moving down to the lockup exhaust, OSI 78. All normal duty vehicles says do not drill. Do not drill, so we're not going to do that. Now we move down to the RSX cooler rear side exhaust. It's normally 78. All models drill 125 thousandths of an inch, which is our last hole down here, and it's almost up to size. If you put the drill bit on it, I mean, it's almost 125, so let's go ahead and send it home. Okay, it was just a little bit, but there we go. So we got this little plate done. We got it ready. Now let's go ahead and do the accumulator, or the where the clutch pressure control valves are. We're going to enlarge 3 holes. As you see here, 1, 2, and 3, 46 thousandths of an inch. 3 other holes in the main bell body spacer plate. So holding the plate like it's on the picture, we got 1 hole here. And then we have our other hole right here. Then we have our last hole. We have a slot, a hole, a bolt hole, and then the feed hole. We have enlarged 3 holes in this valve body. 1, 2, and 3. You see here in the paper. Now we do our main spacer plate, and we have 3 holes as well. Okay, so looking at this slot, we have a square there. We're going to enlarge this one. And actually my drill bit broke, but I do have another one. Okay, this is a heat treated plate. As you see the coloring on it, the drill bit did not want to go through. I got another one here. There we go. That one went well. And then we have a square and a hole, feed hole on top of the square. There we go. Now we have a bolt hole, and on top of the bolt hole we have another feed hole. That went well with that drill bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and start installing our components on the case itself. And we go from there. Okay, let's go ahead and start assembling this thing. I already installed 3 guide pins here for the spacer plate. Just make sure that everything's nice and clean and smooth. Same thing with the spacer plate. I took my gloves off. I need precision here. Let's go ahead and install our main valve body separator plate. Go ahead and install our pump gears. Direction on this driven pump gear, this little ID groove, or actually it's a loop groove, goes towards the separator plate, and this only goes in one way. There we have it. Now let's go ahead and install our main valve body. There we go. Now let's go ahead and get our three 12mm head bolts and 110. Let's go ahead and get our speed handle here. Speed handle. Let's go ahead and drive them in. $10mm. Okay. Now let's go ahead and torque our 8 first, and then we're going to torque our 3. So we're going to do 9 pounds. It's actually 8.7. There we go, 9 pounds. And the other one is going to be 13 pounds, the other 3. So we're going to go 13 pounds. There we go, 13 foot-pounds. There we go. Just make sure that your pump gears turn freely. If it doesn't turn freely, then you have something, a foreign material in there. 13 pounds. Can't be too sure. Now the rest of them are going to be 9 pounds, so I'm going to go ahead and drop it down to I mean, we could do 8.7. I'm just more comfortable with 9 pounds. It's just very close. 8.7 is the factory specifications for this. I like to do them 9 pounds. Sometimes just a little bit will kind of lie to you a little bit, so I just want to make sure that they're nice and tight. Now we get our accumulator body next. We install that. Same thing with our speed handle. Let's get that ready. The 3 short bolts go here. And then we got 3 bolts the same length. There we go. Let's go ahead and drive them. Don't tighten them up. You're going to torque them. Remember, this little underneath this plate, there's 2 check balls. Don't forget that. Okay. Now we are at 9 pounds. There is a sequence you can follow. I just do from the center out. Just make sure they're all nice and even. And remember, we put the red springs on the 1-2 accumulator, and according to the kit, that eliminates the 1-2 slide bump and 1-2 shutter. Sometimes the shutter has something to do with the friction material, the type of friction material, and the fluid that you are using. We're going to go through the material on this Overhaul kit. They've been changing the material for years because of that reason. you know, they have shift quality problems. Okay, so now we're going to put our cooler little ball in here, and now we're going to install our new white spring, and we're going to install our torque converter check valve with the new green spring. Just make sure that this is free, like you see here. It's nice and free. Okay, so now I need to get my stator shaft and arm. Well, but before that, I'm going to go ahead and install this valve body first. Takes two guide pins. Install our separator plate. Let's install our linkage manual valve here. And before we install our valve body, so you just latch it like this. That's what I do, and then I put it in the low reverse position and latch it like that. And the reason I want to do that because I want this pin right here, my case, went too far. This pin right here, my case has to slide through there. So that's why I want to do that. Now here, let's go ahead and get all our bolts here to the side, out of the way. Okay, now we install this portion of the valve body, and just make sure that that plug that we installed hasn't fallen off yet, and then that it's still there. Okay, now let's go ahead and drop this. The reason you want to install this first is because valve body here aligns to it. See this here? It holds it in place. Okay, so now we are down. Let's go ahead and sort our bolts here and see which one goes where. Go ahead and install that little short one there. This one goes here. The short one goes here. And then the long one goes back here, and then the rest of them are all the same. Okay. All right, we get our speed handle. Same scenario here. Let me see if I can turn this transmission. There we go. I think that's better. Got a better view there. Now you're looking for accuracy in this transmissions. I mean, if you see here, this is the first thing that goes on this transmission is the valve body. So you want to make sure that everything is super clean and all the valves are free. The end plugs are where they're supposed to be. Your bolts nicely torqued, and once all that has been taken care of, I mean, you're not going to have any issues whatsoever. And if you do, it's going to be electrical. It's going to be outside of the unit. And the good thing about this unit is that all of the electronics there on the outside. So that's a big plus there. Unfortunately, the valve body, it's inside. You mess something up in the valve body, well, you know the drill. You have to pull the whole thing back out and disassemble the whole thing. Just make sure that they're all nice and tight. Okay. There we go. Check balls. Only 3 check balls on this transmission. The little check ball that goes underneath the spring, and the 2 check balls that go underneath this plate. Okay, so there we have it. Now let's go ahead and install the pressure regulator valve, or a stator with a stator arm shaft there. Okay, well, it seems like we're almost done with the valve body assembly portion of this transmission. B7XA, 1998 Honda Accord. Now let's go ahead. I already installed the 2 guide pins for the valve body here. Let's go ahead and install our little spacer plate, and we're gonna have to rotate this little cotter pin, make sure it doesn't get caught up in any circuit in between. So we're gonna have to align it here in that hole there. Gotta put pressure with your finger to make sure that it's not interfering in any way, form, or fashion. Now we install our stator shaft and arm. Install our stopper there. And now we get our pressure regulator valve body. Drop it in there. Get our speed handle. Go ahead and drive your bolts in without tightening them up. You got to torque them. Now if you remember on the disassembly, this center feed pipe that's here on the pressure regulator valve body goes to the center pipe on the linear solenoids. And if you remember, the little filter that was in there was completely clogged up, and the little filter on the feed pipe as well was also plugged up. Okay, let's go 9 pounds. There we go, 9. These 2 bolts are very, very important. If you over tighten them, you're running the risk of binding that valve. That was the actual purpose for the line to converter charge circuit to be drilled, just in case that valve was completely hung up and it wasn't moving at all in the high line pressure position. You would still have feed from line to converter charge. That's basically what everybody's doing right now. I mean, I used to just drill a hole line to converter charge. I mean, we back in the early 90s, the 670s, 404s, and the older Chrysler units, we used to drill the line to lube. That's where we got that from. Actually, I think it was introduced by ATSG or ATRA back then. So one day I got my oil schematics out, trying to figure out why my converters were burning, and yeah, sure enough, too much load on the vehicle, or actually over tighten those 2 bolts there that hold the pressure regulator valve. Now let's go ahead and put our cover here for my 3 and 4 accumulators. Same thing here. Same 9 pounds. Now we're going to go ahead and install the filter. The main filter, if you see here that the main filter, it's inside of the transmission and cannot be replaced. Somebody comes to your shop or whatever and wants a filter replacement, yeah, you can do it. Charge them $1,800 and throw an overhaul kit free with it. I mean, because this is the filter location as you see here. I mean, it's inside. It takes that much work just to get to it. So I think $1,800 is a fair price, and then you throw in an overhaul kit and a new converter there for free. Okay, so you install the filter first, and then you would install this right here. This is what it has 2 check balls here, and it kind of holds the selector. And if you see here that if you install this piece first, it's going to interfere installing this filter bolt. So you install the filter first, and then you install this piece right here. Okay, here we go. Same thing. All right, we're looking good. We are looking good. Now let's go ahead and drop our differential here. Now let's go ahead and start with the shafts, with the main shaft and the secondary shaft and the counter shaft. We're making progress. We have finished, and we are done with our valve body and valve body kit installation. Now let's move on to rebuilding our shafts. Okay, well, I have all of my main shaft components here. I already disassembled this drum. I took it to my foot press. I'm just going to show the foot press one time, and then every time I will mention that I'm going for the foot press to disassemble or assemble a drum. That way I won't have to be filming all the 4 clutch packs, putting the compressing the snap ring for the return pistons. Okay, so here is our baggie here from our kit, main shaft, 3rd and 4th components. We have all of the steels here, and actually on the 3/4 drum, you're gonna have one side that the steels are a little thicker. They're 10/1000ths of an inch thicker. I think this is like 70/1000ths, and this is like 80/1000ths. Now let's talk about friction material. Now there's a lot of changes that went through the years on friction material. This is from Raybestos. This is the newest friction material that it's in the market today, and it's been redesigned, and you can see this little X's or for fluid to escape, and it actually is supposed to eliminate the shutters and fluid being trapped in between the clutch packs. I think it's XCD FDF or something like that, but this is a Raybestos friction. And let me show you here. This is an OE friction that I had laying down somewhere in my clutch packs, and yeah, it is pre-soaked. I have a couple of leftover frictions from other builds, and sometimes you will get like one friction left over from each build. This is a Borg-Warner friction. That's a 4T65. Here's another Borg-Warner that is not wet. That's the way it looks like. Once you wet them, they look different. And this is the factory. This is the factory friction lining, the factory friction material, and it's totally different from that to this. Now there's been issues with this, as you saw when I tore down this transmission. I mean, most of the friction material ended up clogging the filters. This is actually an old clutch for second clutch. As you see here, I'm going to get this closer to the camera. I mean, you can see the friction lining just falling off. See how scraped that is? This is the problem with the factory OE friction material, which is this one right here. As you see, it has the same buttons were pressed exactly the same. And this is the aftermarket one, aftermarket from Raybestos, which they are selling it as OE quality, and actually exceeds and supersedes factory friction like this one. Like what you see here. Now there's nothing wrong with these frictions. I mean, they do last 100,000 miles or so, just like any Honda transmission does from 97 and up. And the reason why is because is for a shift comfort. So you have clutch pressure control, solenoids and valve that control the applied pressure for comfort. Instead of just grabbing right away, it actually modulates and holds the clutch, and that's actually what's been scraping off the frictions. What I do with that old clutch? Well, you saw that old clutch. It modulates the frictions, and with time and mileage, I mean, after 100,000 miles, I mean, that friction starts to wear off. And if you see here, I mean, you see the thickness of the steel and the thickness of the friction. I mean, there's not a lot of friction material here. I mean, if you look at it real closely. So very thin friction lining here, it's gonna wear out in time. Okay, so now let me go ahead and get these things out of the way. And now all the frictions on this one are the same. So he's gonna take 4 and 4. And on the 1, 2, I think it's 5 and 5. 5, 4, 5. Actually, I got room for 6. Well, but once we start assembling this thing, we're gonna find out. All right, so now we're gonna open up our little baggie here. I'm gonna remove the 3 O-rings that are on the main shaft. And I like to use a 45 angle pick. This is from Mac Tools. I got some from Snap-on, but all my picks are 45s. If I look for a straight pick, I mean, I'll struggle to find one, but I do have straight picks and hooks and all that. That's the first O-ring. Just rotate the shaft, and I used a little hook just to guide it on there. That's going to be my third O-ring here. So actually I got all my 3 O-rings on the shaft already installed. I'm going to go ahead and pre-lube them. So now that we talked about friction material and the way the industry has been changing, it's not that you build a transmission wrong. I mean, it's actually sometimes it's just the friction quality that you get. And there's a lot of manufacturers that builds clutches that you see here. I mean, you have Allomatic, you have different companies, Ray Vestas, Borg Warner. Okay, so we're gonna try the largest 2 O-rings here, and if it doesn't fit, then you get those out of the way. And if you see they look a little different, the smaller ones are shinier. See, these are kind of an opaque black. These are the larger O-rings that come in the little baggie. So there's 2 types of 3rd and 4th pistons, 2 sizes depending on the model. It's a B7XA, but then you have the earlier model. I can't remember exactly the name of it. Let's go ahead and get the other piston, and it's the same size on both pistons. There we go, the outer one, and then we get the inner one. And this one here is for the earlier models that the inner, on one of the pistons, the inner is a little smaller. And of course you have the 2 larger ones that it just depends on the model. And if you saw the baggie, where actually the whole overhaul kit, when I showed it to you on the beginning of the video, there's a lot of different transmissions that this overhaul kit fits. Okay, let's go ahead and lube up our O-rings. Get those out of the way. And then I'm gonna get my pressure plates for all those frictions. And I am going to resurface them with the gasket removal tool, or you could use a little bit of emery cloth and do it by hand, whatever you want to, whatever you guys want to use. So let's go ahead and pre-lube the inside of the drum. Let's go ahead and drop one of this in. They're both the same on the 3/4 on this unit, so there we go. Now let's go ahead and drop the other one in. Go ahead and pre-lube it. Let's go ahead and drop the other piston in. One is for 3rd and the other one is for 4th. I'm going to go ahead and go to the foot press. I'm going to go ahead and compress this return spring to install this snap ring. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this one drum here. Let me get you a little bit closer to the drum. So press the return spring. Install the snap ring. Flip it over. Get my other one in it. Let's go ahead and start compressing it. Compress it. There we have it. Both compressed and snap ring installed. I'm not going to show the other drum. I'm just going to let you know when I'm at that foot press. Okay, so here we have our pressure plates. The first one takes first gear takes a wavy, second doesn't take a wavy, or a cushion the plate, and the third and fourth they both take a wavy. Third and fourth both are the same diameter. These are the same thickness as well. This is the tool that I'm going to use, just a gasket removal tool. Okay, now that I did all four of them, just go ahead and clean your bench, get all that excess debris out. And the reason I want to do this, I just want to get rid of the glaze. And if you look at if you run your fingers through here, the gasket removal tool does not take a lot of it. It does not make it scratchy or anything like that. I mean, just take the glaze away. Okay, so we have first and second. Let's go ahead and put a pressure plate to first gear. Pressure plate to second gear. And one of these is third and fourth. And one of these has the thicker steels than the other one. Now just by looking at it, this pocket here on this side of the drum looks a little deeper. So I'm going to get the thicker steels and see if we're on the right side of the drum. This is third and fourth. These are new steels, Rebestos steels, steel plates. And there we go. We are at the snap ring groove. That's actually the clearance that you want. I mean, I can put a feeler gauge on it, but usually when you do this for years, you already know that, I mean, the clearance on your frictions where they're supposed to be just by looking at them. Now these are the thinner steel plates on this gear. And we see exactly the same thing. We are right at the snap ring groove. I mean, if you look at it, if you see my pick, I mean, it's actually just sliding from the steel plate to the snap ring groove. We are exactly matched level. Okay, now let's go ahead and lubricate the inside of the splines on this drum. Flip it over, the inside where the O-rings are going to slide in. We'll get a little bit of green assembly lube. We're going to go ahead and start assembling this. Put a little bit of assembly lube on this bearing here. Stand our shaft up a little bit. Drop this bearing in. Lay down that bearing. Like that. And now the bearing race. Now we are at the bottom. Now I'm going to lift up my drum. I'm just going to slide it on there like that and engage it through all the frictions. And if you see, we are bottomed out. We already see it right here that we are flush. That's what we want. Now let's go ahead and drop this in. Install our gear. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of assembly lube on this one just to hold it in place, and then we drop our race in there. Okay, so we have assembled our main shaft. Let me go get some sealing rings to install these 3 sealing rings on it. Okay, here I have already removed my 3 old sealing rings. Here they go in the shaft in this position here. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get some green assembly lube, and I'm going to just put a little bit on the grooves where the snap ring, where the sealing rings go, just on one side where they're going to latch closed. That's about as much as we want to put in there. Let me get this closer to you so you can actually see what I'm doing here. This is our main shaft. We're still working on our main shaft, and these sealing rings, they are open. We get it in there. Now sorry guys, I had the fan on. It got a little bit on that last clip. It was a little noisy, and then the compressor went on. I had the fan and the compressor both on. I just shut them off for this clip. So there we have it. Now let me get the case closer to me, or should I say closer to the camera. Now I got 3 sealing rings here still left over. This unit only takes 2 on the other shaft. So we got the unit here, and this is where the main shaft goes, and we're just going to kind of like test it and seat the sealing rings. And it went all the way down. Now I used just a block of wood just to raise it up a little bit. And you probably heard that thump. That thump meant that the main shaft is already bottomed out, and it's not sitting down here on the bench itself. If I take that 2x4 off, then my main shaft is going to be pushed in, and when I'm going to install the main case cover, I'm going to have some issues there aligning stuff together. Okay, so there we have our main shaft already installed on the transmission. This is what it looks like. So it's beginning to take shape already. The secondary shaft goes here, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay, now we're going to assemble our secondary shaft, and as you see already here, my 2 balance pistons, they're not the same height. So we need to make sure that we know where our balance pistons are going to go. So as you see here, first gear has a shorter return spring, so we're going to put our shorter balance piston on first gear. And we see here that second gear is the one that doesn't have a wavy or a cushion plate or cushion spring here, and first gear does. So you see here that the spring, it's taller, so we're gonna put this one here. Now let's go ahead and open up our baggie, and like I mentioned before, this overhaul kit fits a lot of transmissions, and that's why we have a lot of O-rings here. Not all these O-rings belong to this transmission. We only need 2 for the inside and 2 for the outside and 3 for the shaft. So we need 7 O-rings out of all these O-rings here. Okay, so we get one of the pistons, and we just pick up an O-ring and fit it. And see how this O-ring fits big? Just get it out of the way. And I think this is another large one. I mean, doing this with time, I mean, you're gonna be able to discern which are the big ones and which are the small ones. Okay, this is a little bit too small. I think this is the right one. As you see, it just went right on. So we got one. And this is the other one. It went just right on. So all of these O-rings here, we're not going to need them. We only need now to get the ones out for the inside of the drum and the ones for the shaft itself. Okay, now let's go ahead and get my drum over here, and we have an O-ring on each side. We get the O-ring out, and then we kind of match it up, see which one's going to fit. So we got these two O-rings here. Actually, this is too big. These are the two O-rings that are going to go into this drum. There we have it. O-ring installed. Do the opposite side. Remove the O-ring. Install the new one. Lube it up. Lube the outer surface where the outer O-ring is gonna work. Now the inside. So you're up to here, and then you're thinking, well, which is first and which is second, right? Well, first goes to the bottom, and actually when you assemble this, the splines are on the top, so this is going to be second gear. So let's go ahead and lower or install our first gear, second gear piston, which is the one that I grabbed first. Now I need to go to the foot press and install our snap ring. So you want to lube it up nice and good. Make sure it's all lubed up. You don't want to damage the lip seal on this molded piston. I'm going to the foot press. I'll be right back. Okay, so I got that one installed. Now let's go ahead and drop our first gear piston. Lube up the O-ring, the inside as well. Drop it in there. Return spring and our new balance piston. Okay, going to my foot press. Be right back. Okay, well, so we got all these O-rings here left over. Now let's move the smaller ones to the side because we want to install 3 O-rings in our shaft. Some shafts take 4 O-rings. This one only takes 3. Go ahead and take them out. Put the new ones on. Some of the shafts take another O-ring down here. This one doesn't. Just depends on the model that you're working on. Could be an Odyssey B7TA. This is a B7XA. You have a Acura B7VA. There's different line of cars that take the same overhaul kit, but the gears, the inside of the gears are different. They're different tooth count, different gear ratios. So a lot of parts, they cannot be interchanged. Odyssey and Accord, those two transmissions cannot interchange, even though exactly the same on the outside. Now we have 2 sealing rings here, and on some units you have 3. So let's go ahead and take the old ones out. One out. second one out. There's 3 supplied in the kit. We only need 2. Okay, so we have both sealing rings installed. Now let's go ahead and install the rear of this or first gear on this secondary shaft. This is first gear here, and for some reason, I don't know why, but inside here on first gear it gets loaded with a lot of trash, with a lot of gunk. So just make sure that you disassemble this, you know, when you're working on one of these units. Slide that bearing in, and then the other bearing. Slide the gear on the shaft, the other bearing, the race. Then we got 2 half moons here that's going to lock that gear in place. We're going to have this retainer, and now we have a snap ring. It's an external snap ring. Slide it in there, and there we go. You can lube up your sealing rings if you want to. We already have our O-rings here lubed up. Let's go ahead and lube up the inside of the drum. Lube the splines. Let's get first gear. First gear is the one with the wavy, and here's the wavy. The wavy goes like this, and I forgot to mention that on the main shaft as well. The wavies go in that direction. Install first gear frictions. There we go. Now, if you remember, well, I'm going to do second gear. If you remember the clearance that we had in first gear, yeah, let me show you. On the beginning of the video, I show you the clearance that he had. And here we see that we are at the snap ring groove, a little bit below, but we are at the snap ring groove. And if you remember second gear was really, really bad. I mean, all the friction material was gone. I mean, you do the math from friction gone on one friction plate, multiply that by 6 frictions, that's a lot of clearance. Second gear. We are flush. We are flush with the snap ring groove. You want to go to the beginning of the video and see the way they came out, all that clearance. Let's go ahead and drop our drum in here. Kind of wiggle the clutches, make sure they all engage. There we have it. You get to see some splines on this end of the shaft like that. And the reason you want to see some splines is because this bearing race attaches to the splines. Then you have this bearing. Then you have second gear. Let me go get second gear. I'm actually still waiting for the bearing, so I'm just going to install this on the transmission. We're going to end it there for today until I get my bearing, and then we continue the reassembly of this Honda 98 Honda Accord B7XA. B7XA. Let me go get the second gear, and we're just going to assemble it until we get to a stopping point. Once I get the bearing, then we finish this unit up. Okay, so I just dropped second gear on the drum. Let's go ahead and drop this this shaft on the transmission. Carefully make sure that the sealing rings don't get bound up. Okay, so this is as far back as I can go. Let me see. I'm going to raise you up a little bit. I'm going to go further out like this. There we go. I think that's good enough. Okay, so now we we'll drop this gear in here, this bearing, and then we're going to install our shift fork. And it has a little recess with no threads on it. And we see here our bolt. It has no threads here, so it's gonna have to go in this direction. Go ahead and slide this separator here, and this selector right here. It has this little step. This step goes up on these big units. On the little units, it goes down. But this it's a V6 unit. When I say little unit, I mean like a Civic unit. So let's not get confused here. I shouldn't have mentioned that. But anyways, let's go ahead and guide this thing here. Just go ahead and get this bolt started. Same thing. There we go. 9 pounds. Now you want to fold this tab here. That's just a security for the bolt not to back out. Put our reverse gear here. So there we have it. Now we just lube everything up. All 3 shafts. This is where the bearings are going to slide down. The bearing that I'm waiting for is the one for my secondary shaft. It goes on the main case. Just lube everything up. I'm going to get you off to the tripod, and I'm going to show you feed pipe locations. And I'm going to go ahead and install our gasket here right quick. Alright guys, well here we have a bird's eye view of this transmission here. We'll go ahead and turn it a little bit. We have 2 feed pipes here. These are the same height. Then we have 3 feed pipes there. They go to our clutch pressure control solenoids or linear solenoids. We have another feed pipe here that actually goes, these three pipes right here, this one, and this one, they go to the outside of the case. Then we have another small feed pipe right here, and that goes to one of the cooler line fittings. This is the output, and then the return goes to the differential. So there we have it, bird's eye view of this B7XA Honda Accord transmission. Once I get the bearing, then we continue with that. Okay, so I already got the second gear in, the needle bearing and the ball bearing that goes in the case. It took me a couple of days, and we looked all over for it because they always had the wrong bearing. And this is being the 98. It's one of the first years that this unit came out. And if we see the part number here, I'm not sure if it's a B27-9NX. Well, the 3 last digits are the bearing size, and everywhere I looked for one, it was a 12. Honda, it was going to take 2 weeks to get this bearing, the 9NX. So I mean, I looked everywhere until I actually found one, the whole set complete. So I already installed the bearing in the case, already installed my second gear here, and already pre-lubed my shafts. Now we're about to lower the main case cover. Let me get that over here. Okay, now before we get this main case cover here, just make sure that your bearing race, differential bearing race is in. Pre-lube all your 3 bearings. Where the feed pipes are going to go, just pre-lube them, and this piece right here, we're going to go ahead and install it here. Hold it with assembly lube, and then this reverse idler gear, we're going to go ahead and set it right here. And you're gonna want to kind of hold it with your fingers so it won't fall off. And then we just slide everything. We slide the cover into the transmission. Let me put this to the side. Get this here closer. Okay, so I have a 2x4 down here just to keep my main shaft away from the bench. Otherwise, it'll bring everything up a little bit, and you don't want that. Now we go ahead and lower our main case cover. There we go. Now it's almost down. I just gotta, kind of tap it down until you get it on its mating surface. Now what you want to do next, it's go ahead and guide all your bolts. Okay, so now that we have all of our bolts, we're gonna drive them in just close enough. After we drive them all in, we're going to torque them to 33 foot-pounds. Okay, so we set our torque wrench to 33 foot-pounds. Now we can get our 2x4 out and start torquing this bolts. Okay, so now that we are at this point here, now we're going to install the idler bearing here support. We drop the 2 needle bearings in there. Then we install our shaft. Then this little spacer here. And our 2 bolts. And torque him to 13 foot-pounds. Now we get our parking gear and lubricate it. Lubricate our parking gear. Set it here. Normally what I do, I use the same socket to drive it down in there, and I just hit it. Bottom right out. Let's see if I can get you a little bit more centered here. Okay. Now we have 2 more gears. One goes here, the other one goes here. Now you can use your shaft nuts to drive them in. I mean, that's the recommended procedure. Let's see. One is counterclockwise and the other one is clockwise. Okay, so I got a big ratchet here and we're just going to drive them in. You can use that procedure, or you can just drive them in like I did. Now these two bearings. One more gear. Another bearing. Drive them in. Okay, now let's assemble our parking components. Drop that in there. This piece goes like this. Drop that in there. Now we install our hold down bolt. Get a 10mm wrench. Tighten it snug. Get some pliers and fold the security tab so that bolt won't back out on you. Install our pivot pin, the spring with this hook. The hook goes inside the case. Our parking pawl, stopper. Okay, so we're gonna park this thing. There we go. That is gonna hold my counter shaft together still. Now these are next. These are dished, and the dish part goes down. Dish like this. You got 3 of these. These are my old lug nuts here. There's nothing wrong with them. They're in good shape, but I'm going to install new ones on this one. One is clockwise, and then 2 counterclockwise. And it's much easier when you install new nuts on these things, because I mean, they go almost all the way down, and the reason is because of the fold that it has. There's nothing wrong with these, but once you get up to this point, it starts to get a little bit tough to get them, you know. But it is possible. Now my torque wrench only goes clockwise. I got it at 125 pounds. It's supposed to be 126 pounds. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to stick a screwdriver here. I'm just going to hold it, and I'm going to torque it to that. I'm going to get this closer to me. There we go. £125 pounds. Now since my torque wrench doesn't go into reverse, I'm just gonna use this big long. Now this one here, the counter shaft, it's already parked, so that's no big deal. So we're just gonna go in real snug on it. And you can feel the shaft actually going up as I'm tightening this up. You want to go far enough until it stops. There we go. I will do the other one. Same scenario here. Stick a screwdriver in there. Just hold it in place. until it stops. There we go. Now that we have our nuts installed, then we're gonna have to fold them. Let me go get a punch. Be right back. Okay, so I got my transmission out of park so I can rotate these shafts. There's a fold right here. And what I use is just a regular chisel that has been flattened. Just hit it, fold it. I know my transmission wants to rotate because I took the 2x4 off and my main shaft is actually on the bench. That's why my transmission is kind of turning. Alright, now that it's been folded, end cover gasket, 3 O-rings, and the end cover. Now that you have all of your bolts guided on the threads without tightening them up, then you can just snap the end cover in and then drive them in and torque them. Okay, so I already installed my gasket, and if you paid attention on the previous clip, this is the area where it makes a difference. Actually, if you install the other gasket, it would be on top of the parking gear and it won't sit. Now I have my 3 O-rings. These have to be there. If you forget to install these O-rings, it's going to leak out of this area as well, and you're probably going to have some issues shifting. O-ring doesn't go here, that's just my guide pin. It's the 3 feed pipes that go through the case, these 2 right here and this one right here. That's our 3 feed pipes that need an O-ring. As you can see, this is just my dowel pin. No O-rings on the dowel pins. Dowel pins locations, 1 here and 1 here. Feed pipes, 2 here and 1 here. Now let's go ahead and lower our end cover. Oh, and I know I didn't film that, but it takes 2 O-rings here and 2 O-rings here. So just replace that. Make sure you replace those 2 O-rings on the end cover. And now here, I pre-loop all of my feed pipes to go in there. You just kind of like wiggle in there, wiggle them until you get them lined up. There we go. Now I get it as close as I can to the gasket, and the reason I don't want to go all the way down is because I want to start all the bolts, make sure that they're all guided on their threads, and then I'll go ahead and snap the cover into place. Now that you have all of your bolts guided on the threads without tightening them up, then you can just snap the end cover in and then drive them in and torque them. 8.7 or 9 foot-pounds. They don't take much. You over tighten them, you're gonna end up stripping threads. It's a small bolt. Now we get a little bit of assembly lube and just lubricate this shaft right here. And then we're going to install our shift lever seal. Lubricate the inside a little bit, just so it won't fold back on you. Kind of like drive it in there. It actually goes in by hand. You can just tap it in with a socket or with an installation tool. Now the transmission range sensor has got different positions here where you can align it. I have it in neutral and I have it aligned to this line here. Center of the deal to one of the marks, so it's aligned right there. Now we put our transmission range sensor cover. This protects it from debris from the road, so you might want to make sure that you have this installed. Alright, so we're almost done here. Let's install the rest of the electronics, and we call it a full rebuild. I always like to install the new pressure switches on these units because they do cause a lot of issues. If you see here, it has the number 2 embossed on the case. That's my second clutch pressure switch location. Now on this unit, they're both black connectors with step body. Let me get these out of the bag just to explain to you what that means. It has a black connector. You ID the pressure by the connector color. You have a step body right here. There are some that doesn't have this step, it's just flat right here. This is a black connector step body. The 4 cylinders, they take a green connector with a step body here for the second clutch. Actually, it's on the front over here for the second clutch pressure connection. And on the end cover back here, in the back over here, we see a number 3, which that's our third clutch pressure switch location. Put both new on them. Now, it is very common that the second clutch pressure switch fails, and it fails because a lot of contaminants get in there from the second clutch friction falling off. All the fibers, they get in there and they clog the little piston. Also, you will see that the second clutch pressure switch fails because the diaphragm breaks and it starts leaking fluid out of the connector. And sometimes you will see transmission fluid at the transmission control module because of capillary action. When it's leaking, you have pressure switch, or actually pressure, going through the connector. And all that pressure, all those pulsations, every time it goes into second gear, it would end up in the transmission control module. Now let's go ahead and install our shift and lockup solenoid here, our linear solenoids here, and our two shift solenoids in this location. Okay, solenoid installations. We install our lockup and shift. Be careful with the wires. .7, same scenario here. It's 8.7 or 9 pounds. There we go. All 3 bolts. Now here, now we are going to install our linear solenoids. We're going to install first our little fountain, little pipe there. And as you remember from the disassembly, that one of the feed pipes was contaminated. And let me show you, and I hope that we're going to be able to see that there is contamination in there. I'm not sure if it auto-focused or not, but there's still contamination in there, and we need to blow that thing out until we get every single thing of contamination out of that screen. And once it's cleared, then we can go ahead and install it. And it's the middle one. If you remember correctly, when we started on this unit, the screens go in first. Then we have a deep one. And then we have the little short one. There's 3 sizes. Now we install our gasket, linear solenoid gasket, our 3 O-rings. linear solenoids. And our 6 bolts. Now there is a bracket here on the 6 bolts that holds the wiring harness. It goes in that location. Same thing here. Drive them in and torque them. .7. And then we have our 2 shift solenoids here. Now, location here, the brown one goes on the bottom and the black one goes on top. Now, to help you remember which one goes where, just remember that some roads still have blacktop instead of concrete. They're made out of blacktop. So just remember that you're driving on blacktop. Where does the black one goes? It goes on top. Blacktop. That's just a tip for you guys to help you remember. And they go exactly the same on the 5-speed. If you just go up, brown goes first, and then the black one on the 5 speeds. You actually have 4 solenoids like this on the 5 speeds. This is a 4-speed. Now we're going to install our cooler lines. Okay, so I'm hoping that it's positioned correctly here so that we're going to catch everything on camera. So this is our return line that goes to the top of our differential. And then we have this aluminum seal washers. They come new in a kit, and you must always replace this. These are like crush washers, like on your like when you change your motor oil. You want to drive them in by hand first, because they're both are going to be held by a 10mm bolt in this location. Now we install the other one, same scenario here. These are called banjo fittings. Now we're going to go ahead and drive our breather hose through this line, and if you see here, there's a white mark on it. And that's the stopping point where you want to go into that hole. Drive them in by hand. Tighten up the 10mm first. Then we drive our banjo fittings in. And we're going to go 17 foot-pounds. Let's go up, 17.8, let me see here. 17 foot-pounds. Grab our 17mm socket here right quick. Just make sure that they are tight. You don't want to cause a leak in this area. There we go. 17 foot-pounds. Our dipstick. Actually, this transmission will be filled through this hole. This is the fill hole to fill the transmission fluid, the transmission with transmission fluid, and then it has a dipstick to check the level. Okay, for the installer, always put both green O-rings. These are the torque converter O-rings, but normally the V6 will take the lighter color, the larger O-ring for the torque converter. Now this kit comes with this little spacer here. This little spacer goes installed first on the converter neck area, and then you install your O-ring. And what this spacer does, it just keeps the ball bearing from moving back and forth and blocking one of the feed holes. Pay attention to your dowel pins, and you must pay attention to them. Like this transmission came in with one dowel pin stuck in the case. I always put an X on it. Sometimes the R&R guy or the installer doesn't realize that one of the dowel pins gets stuck on the bell housing. Sometimes it's on the engine, sometimes it's on the transmission itself. Pay attention where the dowel pin went, because sometimes they will fall off while cleaning. As you can see here, I'm taking it off by hand. So just be very, very careful. If you don't install one of the dowel pins on the transmission is not going to be centered, and you're going to damage the torque converter. You're going to damage the pump. You're going to cause some damage if the transmission is not properly aligned to the engine block. Normally a converter will get destroyed, but pay attention to that. Installers, be aware, dowel pins have to be installed. Alright guys, well this is our finished product, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, click the like and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, go to my channel, and right there on the right hand of your screen you're going to see a features channels tab, and there's some other transmission guys that want to share some information with you guys. Just go ahead and check out their channels as well. Like I said, if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe and check these guys out as well. So here's our finished product. It's a 2008 a 1998 B7XA, and the first digit on the second row of your tag, it's another series of numbers, and the first digit will be your year model. This is a W, which that'll indicate for 98 B7XA is on Accord, B7TA it's on Odyssey. So this is an Accord transmission. Here we have our finished product, and I've already used a few of these, and some of you guys mentioned for me to use one of this on one of my rebuilds. So here it is. I used the Translab from Superior on this particular unit. I like the way it works. I like the way second gear it makes it a little bit more crisper instead of that hangy, sloppy 1-2 that all Hondas have, which is a normal shift characteristic of this unit. And this actually improves the shift quality on the 1-2 upshift. I like that. I mean, personally, I like that. Okay guys, so here we have it, the B7XA, and I know I could have shown more technical information here. I know that this video is already too long. I did not want to make it a little bit, longer than it already is. But here it is, B7XA transmission rebuild. In the near future, I'll probably be doing a 5-speed. Alright guys, well thank you for watching. My name is Hiram. Click like, subscribe, and check out the other guys' channels. See you later.